I can't sleep. This happens to me a lot. I just can't switch off my mind at the end of the day. So, lots of things troubling me. Or puzzling me. And I usually get up and just talk to myself. I just talk to the walls and the refrigerator and the oven. It's like a share group kind of thing. They don't say anything though, which I find to be a good sign. But yeah, so I figured if I'm going to talk to myself, I might as well talk to the camera, since I'm trying to boost my social media author platform this year. So yeah, I can't sleep. I'm a little bit medicated. You may have noticed it looks creepy as hell in here. I tried everything with the lighting. I have a flashlight, I have a candle. There's no way to make this look not creepy. And historical note, this is February 15th in Dallas, Texas in the year 2021. The day the state wasn't prepared for an insane winter storm. So there are rolling blackouts going on right now because the demand for electricity, people running the heater and such, far surpasses the supply. And the Texas government, there are things they could have done to prepare for this. They made decisions about how our power grid would work, that we wouldn't have any cooperation with other states who could at this point be helping us out. No, instead we have to have rolling blackouts in 5 to 17 degree temperatures, as it's been all day. That was the approximate low and high that I witnessed whenever I checked. And I don't know, it's aggravating. It's psychologically and physically torturous. Haven't really been able to sleep. I mean, it was 2 in the morning and it's about 10 p.m., 10:05 p.m. right now. So 2 in the morning I woke up because I was cold. Figured out the power was out. Pretty much been up ever since. And it comes on and off, like it'll be on. Last time I timed it at around an hour and a half that it was on. And then that was the following 7 hours of it being off. And I have friends who've been without power the entire day. And I have friends who haven't lost their power once. It just depends on where you are and where they decide they need to cut the power off for a little while. But I don't know. I mean, it's not the end of the world by any stretch of the imagination. But it makes me think this is probably similar to how the end of the present version of our world will begin. Just cold. Everybody loses power. You can't use your cars. Because Texas we don't have winter storms like this. We weren't prepared. We don't have the experience or the just thing in place to deal with this level of freezing and snowing and almost just zero temperatures. But yeah, it makes me think that's how it'll start, but it won't get better. Like, this is just a winter storm. But there could be something so much worse at some point. And I don't know, it just kind of triggers my imagination and makes me go down a dark path. Because you think about that kind of stuff. And you know, the end of the world, I mean, how do you define that anyway? I think the world, as in cultures and histories, have come to an end cyclically throughout human existence. You know, I think we've had history, or the capacity to record history, far longer than our history records, because the world has ended, and not in like a mythological sort of way, just the planet changes, and humans are very adaptable. So our records may be lost, our cultures may be lost, but we'll start over. So, you know, I don't think of the end of the world in a religious sense at all. I think universes end anytime someone dies. There are just so many ways to look at just the concept of what is the end of the world. I think it happens constantly, daily. Ending and rebirth. You know, a person dies, their world ends. The world you knew that they were in ends, but a world where they no longer exist begins. I mean, the smallest thing could define a world. It's just fascinating to think about. But I mean, worlds end. Everything ends. And this thing, like this storm that Texas could have, had they made better choices, been prepared for a little bit more, at least as far as the power grid is concerned. That's something that science says is a possibility, and they ignore it. You know, it's like Krypton ended because at least in the 1978 Superman movie version of the story, you know, you have Superman's dad telling the scientists and the leaders what's up, and everyone's like, oh, shut up, Jor-El. Nobody wants to hear your doom and gloom reality. We like alternate facts here on Krypton. Jor-El's like, alright, cool, I'm gonna put my baby in the mail. I mean, and there you go, like Krypton ends, right? It blows up. For whatever whatever was wrong with that planet. I don't remember. But yeah, so the planet ends, the culture ends, but Jor-El put his baby in the mail. And he landed on another planet, and a new world begins. I mean, yeah, that story is metaphorical and, I mean, I guess pretty deliberate in its representation of the cycle of endings and beginnings that is our reality. But yeah, we need to prepare for things because everything ends, even if it does lead to another beginning. What we know as the world, as the communal world, will end. I mean, everyone thinks they're immortal, and that's why we don't prepare. Governments think they're immortal. The United States has been the dominant world power for over 200 years. Will never end. But the evanescence of empire is a thing. I mean, how many thousands of years was Egypt the world power? And it ended. I mean, Egypt still exists, but it isn't the power that it was. And the Roman Empire rose, stood for centuries, and fell. The British Empire, the sun never set on the British Empire. But it is no longer what it was. There is no British Empire. And now it's the United States. And we're not planning for the inevitable. That could be centuries or even millennia in the future. I mean, United States democracy could stand for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years. But it will end. At some point, it will end. It almost ended this year. It's only February and we've already almost lost democracy. There was a band of insane idiots that stormed and took the United States Capitol building while they were certifying the election results. The president was, cheering them on. He set the whole thing in motion himself because he lost the election. We came very close to losing democracy. Because if a handful of politicians had made different choices, man, it would be a very different world today. That world would have ended. But so far, crisis averted. Now there's a snowstorm like I have never seen in Texas in my entire life. It's not the end of the world. But it just, puts things in focus. And it's just, we will end. And, the Yellowstone supervolcano is going to change the dynamics of global power any minute now. I don't know that anything is being done or can be done about that. But there is an active supervolcano in North America that is overdue for eruption. Or it's, approximately due. I don't remember exactly how many thousands of years are calculated to go by between eruptions, but we're about at that point. And I mean, what are you gonna do anyway? But it's not something I feel like the government is addressing, because perhaps we could be doing something proactively. We could have a solid evacuation and emergency power backup plan specifically set up to deal with the inevitable eruption of the Yellowstone supervolcano. I mean, we're in the days when it could well be too late to start planning, but we don't know. It could be another several centuries or longer, as far as I know, before it goes off. Because I think the calculations are approximate. I don't know enough about that science. So I'm absolutely only speculating. But yeah, all things end, and I'm cool with that. I think the fact that all things are finite gives them added value. You know, the most finite thing in the world, like could be something like the twinkle in someone's eyes. It's just there in a flash and it's gone. But it means so much to you to have seen it. Like it sends a spark of energy into you. And it's so precious because it's so finite. It's a twinkle. But, right, like, even our lives, the history, human history, like all the things, all the ancient stories we still have today, all the current stories we have today, all of our history, all of our culture. If you look into deep time, the deep, nigh unfathomable future, it is inevitable that all trace of us will be erased and forgotten from the universe. Even if we become a spacefaring species, which I think we will. I'm with Carl Sagan on that. I think we will if we don't destroy ourselves first. If we give ourselves the time to do it, we'll become an interstellar species. We've already identified relatively close stars with potential Earth-like planets around them. I think they're pretty sure they're Earth-like planets around them. If we make it long enough, we're going to go there. We're going to spread out throughout the star system, throughout the galaxy, over millions of years if we survive long enough. And even then, that entire galactic civilization and culture and history, everything we become and every other galactic organization or life form that we interact with will be gone, lost. No one, other worlds, other life forms, other galactic governments and cultures could rise up after us, who would never, under any circumstances, know that we existed at all. There would be no trace left of us in the cosmos, given enough time. And I think that makes our story so much cooler. It's like Burning Man. You have to be there. And we get to. We get to be there in this lost history that no one in the deep future even knows was here. We get to be these creatures that no one in the universe, in the deep future, even knows we're here. We get to live these elaborate stories that are forgotten, that are just gone. And no one even gets to hear these stories anymore, these fantastic stories of our history, of our cultures, of our fictions and mythologies. And we're living those stories, those lost and forgotten stories. I just think that makes it beautiful. Anyway, that was my foot against the couch, if that made a sound. Yeah. So I don't know how long I've been talking, but I'll do this. I'll just get up, pace back and forth. And just talk it out with myself, man. So now I'm talking it out with you. Thanks for listening. Right, I have 15 subscribers now, last I checked, which is a massive improvement, but still, I mean, a beautifully finite and hilariously finite in, the context of global reach. But it's all the more precious for it. You're precious, my 15 followers. Yeah. But see, I mean, that's the thing. Like, what if, and I don't expect to, because I mean, this YouTube isn't my primary focus in life. I'm an author. That's my primary focus. Career-wise, like, outreach-wise. But, right, say it goes up from 15 to 15,000. I mean, say I become the most famous, best-selling novelist of all human history. It doesn't matter, because one day it will all be forgotten. Fame is a fart in the wind. That's not something worth striving for, to me. That's not something worth living for. It's a fart in the wind. So I feel sorry for people whose whole focus in life is to be rich and famous. Like, who wants to be famous? I just want to sell enough books to get by. That's my dream. Just do enough to do what you want to do in life and not have to do anything else. I don't want to be famous. I mean, I'd take it in stride, I guess. I'd be present about it. I'd absorb that experience and relish it, but I don't need that. I don't see why anyone would, because it's not real. Like, fame isn't real. In deep time, we're all equally famous, and that means not at all. I mean, ask a millennial or a Gen Y, and I'm not speaking about those generations negatively, but I'm just saying, ask someone in that age range what they think of Rudolph Valentino, who was so famous in the silent film era, the 1920s, I think, that, you know, women were so in love with him, and probably gay men too. I mean, obviously gay men too. They just, you read the stories and they just say women were so, but you know, the girls and boys were in love with him. They had never had a movie star like that before. And then when he died young, so many people committed suicide. It's just crazy that that kind of fame existed, but ask a young person today. And sure, of course, some of them are going to be film buffs and tell you all about Rudolph Valentino, but nowhere near the number of that age group back in the 1920s could have told you about Rudolph Valentino. He's just kind of a, outside of cinephile circles, he's all but forgotten. And he was one of the most famous men on earth. And that's just like a microcosmic version of deep time, what deep time is going to do to Rudolph Valentino. No one will remember him. Not one strip of film will still exist that bears his image. Not one book will still exist that records his name. So he's just as famous as the rest of us. And if fame was all that mattered, and I don't know anything about his personality. I mean, case in point, I couldn't tell you all about Rudolph Valentino at all. I just know he was a silent movie star who people were falling in love with, literally. And he died. I know that story, but I don't know anything else. But I'm just saying, if someone like that, if fame were their only objective in life, that's like your only objective in life, like the thing you want most in the world to do with your life is to fart in the wind. I mean, why? Enjoy, if you're an artist, enjoy the act of expression. Don't do it for fame. I mean, do it for the experience. That's all life is. It's an experience, and it's a fantastic experience because everyone gets to have their very, very own. I'm a universe unto myself, and so's everyone I meet. Because within them, within all of us, exists a version of the universe that only exists within our consciousness and experience of the universe. We're all parallel universes. Living through the same events, but having different experiences. Having different vantage points. Some of us were in the building on September 11th, 2001, and some of us were watching it on TV, while some of us were asleep and only heard about it after we woke up and everything was done. Some of us were flying the planes. It's so many different versions of reality that are woven into the same reality. I just think that's awesome. It's like everybody is the main character. Everyone is the superhero in their own comic book. So everyone you meet is Batman. Effectively. You know, everyone you meet is that cool. But they just make a brief little cameo in your story. Like they're an extra in the background. But like, maybe higher dimensional beings could watch this and just look at us and be following like my story and see somebody walk behind me in a grocery store and say, "Oh, that's so and so from this story. That's so cool." We're all the protagonist in a story that only we perceive. It's really cool. But anyway, I guess I should wrap this up. I don't have any idea how long I've been doing this, but I know, going like for hours and hours with the dark footage that I had, the dark, creepy footage. I hope some of you were just listening to me rant. I don't know if I said anything of value. My wisdom is my foolishness, and my foolishness is my wisdom. I know that. That's all of us. So, whatever we say is gonna be both depending on the ears, depending on the conscious universe it's filtered through. But yeah. Oh, I don't want to stop. I'm just going to keep talking to myself, but the camera will be off. Actually, maybe not. It's really cold. What is the temperature in Dallas right now? "12 degrees. That's cold. Right, that's why I feel cold. But I also don't want to use up the battery in this flashlight. So, yeah, I'd better sign off. But anyway, I can't sleep, so thank you for sitting up with me for a while. Good night.